Busy? It's time to relax. Maybe slip into something a little bit more comfortable. Turn the lights down low. And pump up the volume for another titillating edition of the almost 30-minute quiz show.
We get serious for once as we get to grips with racism and the US protests. But fear not, we'll also dish up the usual tawdry fare.
We'll get the come on and the lowdown from a Swiss whore, a Romanian shoemaker, a sexy musketeer and a French beer maker.
There'll be time for the old favourites, our listicle and some uninspiring literotica.
So buckle up, take your foot off the clutch and power into the almost 30-minute quiz show. Vroom! Hello.
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
And welcome.
And how are you?
Yeah, this is all very formal.
It's like those language tapes. Guten Morgen. Guten Tagen. No, it's Guten Tag. See, I stopped after the first word, didn't you?
Have you been drinking again?
Yeah. It's the only way working with you is bearable.
You're drinking filtered beer.
Unfiltered, it says.
Oh, unfiltered. What does that mean?
It's just the crap from the bottom of the barrel, I think.
Okay.
It's very nice, though.
I put some lemon lime in mine.
You mean shandy?
I made a shandy.
You're a shandy drinker.
Yeah, I'm not man enough to drink beer.
Fruit-based drink for the lady.
Oh dear. Somebody did that to me once. It was one of the worst experiences of my life. Very quickly, I was in Hamburg, which in those days was a real port city. I went into a typical sailors bar, but these were like real beefy sailors. I was with a mate and we hooked up with a couple of
sailor's
people.
mate?
Sailor's mate, yeah. We hooked up with a couple of people. And
By hook up, what do you mean?
Well, no, spent the evening.
Okay.
And they said, what would you like to drink? So he said, I'll have a beer. And I said, I like cider. So I had to explain what cider was. And they said, we've got the perfect drink for you. The waiter comes out with 3 big tankards filled with like cloudy beer, and in front of me there's a bloody fluted glass with a cherry on the top, and it was rank, whatever they gave me, but I was just dying, and I had this sort of arrow above my head saying, okay sailors, come get me.
Hello, sailor.
Exactly.
We had a letter. Well, a comment with a joke on it.
I thought this was going to be like a letter in Sesame Street. You know, this is
This
brought to
show
you by
is
the
brought
letter
to you
X.
by the letter A. Available on Amazon now.
Yeah, triple X in our case.
Oh God, no. Maybe an X.
Okay.
Suitable for 18 and over.
I wonder if they can hear a dog in the background.
I can hear it, and it bloody well won't shut up.
I'm going to kill it. I'll kill it soon.
I'll tread on it.
All right.
It's only a Yorkshire Terrier.
Okay.
It's not a real dog.
So
It'll
you had
go
a
very
letter?
well with your drink, actually,
Yes.
that dog.
You had a letter.
Someone actually sent a comment to us. And remember last week we were talking about things going on in lockdown and drive-through strip bars.
How could I forget?
It was a very good story you told. So, our listener, God bless him, sent the following joke regarding the drive-in restaurant and strip club. A biker walks into a bar and sits down on the bar stool near the end of the bar. He takes a look at the menu and it reads as follows. Hamburger, $2.99. Cheeseburger, $3.99. Chicken sandwich, $4.99. And a hand job, $19.99. The crusty old biker waves the bartender down and up walks this tall, busty, beautiful redhead in her mid-20s. She smiles at the biker coyly and he asks in a quiet voice, "Are you the one who gives the hand jobs?" The bartender blushes slightly and says, "Yes, I am," with a sexy little smile. The biker grins and says, "Well, wash your hands because I want a cheeseburger."
But Tish.
Questions, I think, after
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Question number 1. Name the NFL quarterback who lost his job after taking the knee.
Question number 2. Who wrote the fairy tale The Red Shoes?
Question number 3. Madison Bumgarner. Madison. I can't say it now. Madison Bumgarner is famous for playing which sport?
Number 4. True or false? 3 million people are watching porn right now.
Question number 5. Steven Seagal, Robert De Niro, and Lindsay Lohan starred in which 2010 Mexico-based flop?
Hi folks, Donald Trump here. If you want a terrific impression of me, I mean really terrific, like the one on the almost 30-minute quiz show, then don't get a low-energy loser, okay? You need Frank Falzone, a fantastic voiceover guy who I've known all my life, okay? He's great, terrific, great friend, really good guy. Frank is exclusively on Fiverr.com and will make your voiceover great again. Avoid your voiceover being a total disaster and win bigly with Frank Falzone, okay? He's terrific.
Question number 1. Name the NFL quarterback who lost his job after taking the knee.
So the only one that I know about is from a year or two ago, and I'm going to get his name wrong anyway, who was Knapanak,
Is that because he doesn't matter to you?
Oh, don't start. We've not even got on to think. But
Is that because your white privilege won't let you know the answer?
He's the only one that I... Did he lose his job over it?
Yeah.
What's his name?
Colin Kaepernick.
Kaepernick, that's the one.
He wasn't that great a quarterback, but he certainly was one of the you know, he hasn't had a job since. He left the San Francisco 49ers, I think, at the end of 2016, 2017, and he's not been re-employed since. He's had tryouts last year, but got nowhere. You know, Donald Trump took exception to him taking the knee during the national anthem, which was, you know, relatively silent and peaceful protest. And I was going to say he's been blackballed, but that's probably not the term.
Not appropriate.
But, you know, he has been boycotted by the NFL ever since. Why are we talking about this? For obvious reasons. The recent death of George Floyd, or murder. The police officer hasn't been found guilty, but he's been charged with second-degree murder.
Yep.
And as he sat on George Floyd with his knee for about 9 minutes while he died, on video, I don't rate his chances of getting off in that particular instance. We sat and we've spent a good while discussing how we cover this in a sensitive manner, especially seeing we're not particularly sensitive when we do this show.
Right.
What are your feelings on this?
Oh, get me to go first. Okay, first of all, I am white. I would be considered to be from an ethnic minority or a minority of one sort or another, but because I am white, it's easier for me to hide it. But the thing that bothers me about the Black Lives Matter and that side of the protest, and it's something that you brought up earlier, why is it just the blacks or the black folk or the African Americans who are saying this about them? There are so many minorities, religious, ethnic, people of different colour, handicapped, you name it, who are openly discriminated against in the United States and in other countries on a daily basis, whether it is formally, whether it's local government or national government, or whether it's by individuals. And so I've got 1,000% sympathy for this protest, but I just wish it would be broader. And my only other comment, and then I'll leave it to you, is I think it's going to achieve nothing.
Yeah, I agree with you on what it will achieve. I think it makes a statement if you can bring on support. The minute you start having groups of people rioting, the rioters are of many different ethnicities. It's not a comparison to say one ethnicity is rioting because lots of other groups have turned up. You start to lose sympathy. There's been curfews out there in America. I know in Britain over the weekend, statues of Winston Churchill, who is a national hero still, have been defaced, and another statue was thrown into the local river.
Don't you have to separate between the unacceptable, illegal criminality that we've seen in all of this, the looting, the defacing, the anti-Semitism, the anti-lots of people, separate that from the basic and legitimate claims that are being made here?
It does, and I think all of the noise around it actually takes away. To me, Colin Kaepernick made a very good point. You know, it was a protest that the world saw, and it upset the president, which is usually a good sign. I mean, he's upset this time. But, I mean, if you saw what he wrote, what did he write on Twitter? When the looting starts, the shooting starts. I mean, no one should be running, you know, a corner shop, never mind a country, that's what you put out.
I had a conversation last night with a guy who lives in Connecticut. He is pensioner in a nice home, has always voted to the right. And he said there is no way on earth that he could vote for Trump, and it doesn't matter who wins the nomination for the Democrats, he'll be voting Democrat, perhaps for the first time in his life.
Joe Biden has actually got enough votes now. But for me, the thing about all of this is, you know, it was such an obvious crime, and the racism is so obvious. And something my cousin pointed out to me, in America, school funding is done based on property taxes, but it's actually done by district. So if you live in a poor district, your property taxes are not as high as those in a wealthy district. Therefore, your school will not be as good as the school which has all the extra funding and all the extracurricular activity in a wealthy district. And it will therefore perpetuate this from generation to generation. And, you know, I'm happy to say where I grew up in England, it was on a county basis, and every school and every pupil got the same amount, no matter where they were. But when you live in a country where it perpetuates this, you know, that's the sort of thing that, you know, really upsets me. The other thing that has upset me over the last week or two is mainly on social media with people who I would consider friends, certainly contacts on social media, who are falling over themselves to try and prove they are more liberal and more woke than the next. Ultimately, on social media, the only people that see this are your friends. You know, if you have to prove to your friends who you are, if you can't stand up and say, I'm an anti-racist, and just expect them to believe it, I'm not looking to be educated by people. That just drives me absolutely nuts.
To advertise on the Almost 30-Minute Quiz Show, please email us at almost30quiz@gmail.com. That's almost 30 written as a word, almost30quiz@gmail.com. There are great introductory rates available right now. So, Mark, who wrote the fairy tale The Red Shoes?
Jeffrey Archer?
No.
Shakespeare?
No. Think Russian.
Think Russian. Solzhenitsyn.
Yes, but no, I was...
No. Yeah, but no, but yeah, but no.
I was leading you on.
Oh, you tease.
European.
Well, there's only one name that I can think of.
Grim.
It is quite grim that I can only think of one name, but it's Hans Christian Andersen.
Hans Christian Andersen. Dun, 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 dun.
Danny Kaye.
Yes, Danny Kaye was.
We
Hans
are so
Christian
old.
Andersen. Shoes. We will get there presently.
Yes.
Because we're going to do now a roundup of silly corona stories. After the heaviness of Black Lives Matter a couple of minutes ago, it's time to let our hair down, or in our case, let our hair out, what's left of it, and have a look at what's been making the news around the world as people try to cope with coronavirus. Relax, good word. Relax with coronavirus. Very good.
Good segue into my one here. So the first story comes from Switzerland. It's from the Daily Mail. Swiss sex workers have drawn up a list of rules which they say minimises the risk of transmitting coronavirus in brothels, in hopes that the country's ban on the industry could soon be lifted. It comes as Switzerland's adult industry has been heavily hit by the pandemic after the government placed a temporary ban on prostitution 2 months ago to help stop the virus. The plan to reopen the industry suggests that sex positions which allow for a safe distance between faces, such as doggy style and reverse cowgirl, are advisable. These positions reduce the risk of transmission of the virus in water droplets. Both doggy style and reverse cowgirl allow for the woman to face away from her sexual partner, avoiding face-to-face contact. Other measures for protecting the health of sex workers include ventilating rooms for at least 15 minutes after each customer and washing bed sheets and hand towels at a temperature of at least 60 degrees. To finish off, gloves, condoms and disinfectants Gloves, condoms and disinfectants would also be provided at the brothels, and each session should be kept to 15 minutes.
Apparently kissing is discouraged. The next thing, imagine 4 Olympic-sized swimming pools filled with craft beer. Admittedly,
every night, I imagine that.
Admittedly French craft beer, but still. Now, apparently French craft beer is unpasteurized, which means it has a limited shelf life. Because of coronavirus and because the hospitality industry, pubs, bars, clubs, hotels, are pretty much gone, down 70+%, it means that there's a lot of beer that's literally being thrown down the drains. The equivalent of 4 Olympic-sized pools, which is 10 million litres of beer.
Wouldn't it be better to send it to one of these corona hotels or places where people are isolating, fill up the pool and just tell them to help themselves?
Let me guess, you're back to sex.
Well, no, Harvard. I'm taking it up market. Harvard research, also from the Daily Mail. Harvard researchers have said that sexual partners should consider wearing face masks to cover their nose and mouths while doing the deed. While the advice sounds like something out of Cosmopolitan magazine guide for spicing up things in the bedroom, it's actually a suggestion from Harvard. The guide, published in the Annals of Internal Medicine, I have to say that one right, suggests that the couples who are not quarantining together but remain sexually active consider not kissing on the mouth and wearing protective face masks during sex to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Sexual contact carries some risk for exposure to the infection with severe acute respiratory syndrome. The survey continues that abstinence, masturbation and sexual activity using digital platforms carry the lowest risk for infection with COVID-19.
In Romania, one Grigori Lup from the Transylvanian city of Cluj was very unhappy to notice that social distancing wasn't exactly being respected. So, being the shoemaker that he is of many years in a family of shoemakers, he decided that it was time to make the perfect shoe for coronavirus. It measures 2.5 feet long, or size 75. He's had 5 orders, which is not surprising in one of the poorest countries in Europe, because each pair costs $115.
And to finish off, we're going to go to sport. The Portuguese Premier League is back, and Porto, who are one of the most successful teams, played their first game against FC Famalicão, and they lost 2-1. Do you know the name of the scorer for Porto, the first goal scored for Porto after the virus?
Go on, hit me with it.
Jesus Corona.
Oh, that's bloody hilarious.
Philip, what's so funny?
The almost 30-minute quiz show. Listen, Lizzie.
You're right. That's freaking awesome. Subscribe today.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's nice pizza, that.
Yummy.
Thank you. Question number 3. Madison Bumgarner is famous for which sport?
Green bowling.
Close.
Dominoes.
Less close.
Pinball.
It's got a ball in it.
Shuffling.
I am, but that's nothing to do.
This could go on forever.
Okay, baseball.
Oh, okay.
Just to save time, because the article is much more interesting than the
Yes.
question. I've compiled 24, or in fact 25, because I can't count to 24. 25 sportsmen with rather ridiculous names, just for a bit more light relief.
Sports people.
Sports people, correct.
Let's see if we can get through all of them.
I'll start. Number 1, retired French international rugby player Jean Condom.
German former alpine skier Fanny
It's
Schmeller.
pronounced Schmeller.
Is it?
Fanny Schmeller.
Okay. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
I just wanted to say Fanny Schmeller to correct you. But anyway. Number 3, Argel Fuchs, a Brazilian footballer.
The South Korean pole vaulter Kim Yoo-suk.
Former Swiss footballer Andre Muff.
And Sega Richard Bastard was a football player and referee.
Former Major League Baseball outfielder John Oscar Dickshot, better known as Ugly John Dickshot.
There was a Russian figure skater by the name of Irina Eduardovna Slutskaya.
And current German ski jumper Andreas Wank.
Now, the next one, let's face it, it's pronounced completely differently to the way you want me to say it, but I'll do what you want. She is a Canadian trampoline gymnast with medals at Olympics, and her name is Karen Cockburn.
Another former baseball player for the Boston Red Sox and Seattle Mariners, Dick Pole.
There was a baseball player called Ralph Pierre Pete Lacoque Jr.
And while we're on baseball players who seem to have the worst names of everybody, Liddell Titcomb, better known as Cannonball Titcomb.
Stubby Clapp is a first base coach for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yet another baseball player, this time for the Detroit Tigers, Charlie Furbush.
I'm not really sure how to pronounce this, but American football safety for the Dallas Cowboys. What's a safety?
It is pronounced safety.
What is a safety?
It's a position, I think, on the... I'm sure I'll be corrected at some point, but it's one of the outer positions defending the quarterback. I could be wrong.
What a bloody stupid name. A bit like the name of the safety, Hashawn Haha Treshon Clinton Dix.
It's a bit of a mouthful. Chinese trampoline gymnast who actually won gold at London 2012, Dong Dong.
And a very well-known football player, played for England, David Andrew Seaman.
Another footballer, a Chelsea trainee who joined Wrexham in 2016. Naughty. So naughty.
My personal favourite is the man who ran to be FIFA president in 2016, Tokyo Sex Whale.
Sudanese power forward for the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2010, Longar. And actually, he's probably about 7 foot, so he's really longer.
Basketball coach, formerly known as Shamgod Wells, is now known as God Shamgod.
Linebacker at Florida Athletic University, who never quite made it in the big time and is now a prison officer, possibly to do with his name, Your Highness Morgan.
Football defensive back, wonderful, terrific Mons Jr. Has to be related to Donald Trump, doesn't he?
Terrific, tremendous Mons.
Yes.
And finally, the most evil ice hockey player out there, from Slovan Bratislava, Miroslav Satan. Write to us at almost30quiz@gmail.com, 30 being letters and not numbers, almost30quiz@gmail.com. We can also be found on Twitter at almostquiz, on Facebook, the Almost 30 Minute Quiz Show, and on Instagram at the Almost 30 Minute.
Question number 4, Mark. True or false? 3 million people are watching porn right now.
3,000,001? Give me a minute and I'll come up with the answer.
I was going to say it's -1 right now because you're busy recording this, but yeah.
No, I can multitask. Doesn't seem a lot. Was that 3 million in London or?
The whole world, people right now. How many people are there in the world?
About 7 billion, maybe more.
How many of them have got access to the internet? How many of them are of the right age?
It's got to be a good few billion.
Right.
You see what I did there? A few.
Yes. So the answer's a few billion right now.
Yeah.
Rather
Which
than
only 3 million who watch porn.
Right. So what's the answer?
My guess is false.
I think you'd be correct. It's 10 times that number, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Which brings us to a little corner on this pod that we've launched over the last couple of weeks, thanks to our friends at the Literary Review and the Guardian newspaper. Once a year, the Literary Review picks its worst literotica, those naughty little stories. It chooses the worst ones and gives an award. We happen to find this thanks to The Guardian. So we've already done...
Is this when you put in porn on the internet?
Absolutely. This is what comes up, as it were.
Yeah.
So we've done
Posh internet.
2019, 2018, and now it's the turn of 2017.
And we've shortlisted it down to 3. We found the best 3. It was quite a thin year, 2017.
Yeah. So the first one is The Future Won't Be Long by Jarrett Kobeck. Memories of these previous encounters became distant, remote, erased once I got down to brass tacks with John DeLee. With John, it was a communication, a dialogue between two bodies, electric impulses transmitted over wires of flesh and bone. Words one cannot speak, words that can only be heard. Skin that became skin anew. We made love and we had sex and we had sex and we made love. But, reader, again, I implore, mistake me not. I am not your Pollyanna. I am not your sweet princess. We fucked.
War Cry by Wilbur Smith with David Churchill. I'm going to have you now, Leon said. He led her back up to the beach to where the sand was dry. Then he took off his coat, placed it on the ground, and she lay down upon it. Christ, he muttered, placing himself on top of her. It's bloody cold. I might get frostbite on my cock. She gave a low, purring laugh. Silly man, why don't you put it somewhere hot?
That's really good. As a God Might Be by Neil Griffiths. Looking down, she unbuckled his belt. We're grown-ups. Perhaps he wasn't quite in the moment because he thought of Kierkegaard and Socrates. If there wasn't great wisdom gained by lust, by love, its consummation, the aesthetics of all this, then you were doing it wrong. Kiss me again.
All right. You can listen to the Almost 30 Minute Quiz Show on Stitcher, Castbox, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and all great podcast providers. Subscribe now and write us a lovely review. Question number 5. Steven Seagal, Robert De Niro, and Lindsay Lohan starred in which Mexico-based flop in 2010?
Absolutely no idea. Tequila Sunrise.
You've got the Mexico thing in there.
Well, you said Mexican.
Yeah, it was a good clue, I suppose, if I say
Yes.
Mexico.
Mustachioed, dark people who peddle drugs.
Mexican lives clearly don't matter.
Yes,
to you.
exactly. No, I have no clue. What's it called?
It's called Machete.
Oh, there you go. I had no clue.
That's because it was a flop and didn't get very far. Although there was a sequel called Machete Kills.
So why are you telling me this?
It's all to do with a story from Australia. We always get our best stories from Australia.
That was about Mexico.
I know, but it's to do with machetes.
Ah,
So this story is from Australia. In a sex fantasy gone wrong, sex again, sorry David, 2 men with machetes entered the wrong house in New South Wales, Australia, before quickly realising their error. One of them has now been acquitted of entering a home armed with a weapon in July 2019. They had been hired to carry out a client's fantasy of being tied up in his underwear and stroked with a broom. Who wants to... Seriously?
yeah. So what happened?
The judge concluded the facts of the case are unusual. The role play was arranged over Facebook by a man near Griffiths, New South Wales, who provided his address to the hired pair. He was willing to pay 5,000 Australian dollars if it was really good, the judge said. However, the client moved to another address without updating the 2 men. They then entered a home on the street of the original address. When the resident noticed a light on his kitchen at 6:15, he assumed it was a friend who came by daily to make morning coffee, as you do. When the men called out the name of their client, the resident turned on the light and removed a sleep apnea mask he was wearing. It was then he saw them standing above the bed with the machetes, which they appeared to have brought as props for the role play. When they realised their error, one of the pair said, "Sorry, mate," and shook the resident's hand. "Sorry, mate," according to local reports. The men then drove to the correct address, where the client noticed one man had a great big knife in his trousers and asked them to leave the weapons in the car. The client then cooked bacon and eggs and noodles. And a short time later, the police arrived at the property, found the machetes in the car and arrested the hired pair. The judge ruled that evidence did not suggest that the men's actions were intentional. You with it?
No.
Bacon, eggs, noodles?
No.
They carried their machetes either as a prop or something to use in the fantasy, the judge said. The fantasy was unscripted and there was discretion as to how it would be carried out. A lawyer for Terence Leroy, one of the accused, said it was a commercial agreement to tie and stroke a semi-naked man in his underpants with a broom. Entry was not with intent to intimidate.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.